Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. The Raiders spent a week and a half or so in the South after getting their dicks kicked in by the Saints and said, all right, we're going to stay acclimated. We're going to make sure we get used to the weather out there. We're not going to have to travel, get on a plane. That'll help us out against the Jaguars. Mosey on into Jacksonville, get a 17-point lead. Third time this season, the Raiders have gotten a 17-plus point lead. Third time, the Raiders walk away with a loss after taking a massive lead. And this team, Soto, is the reason why we drink.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things I want to say. I don't know where to start. But we're just...
Isn't that always the way?
There's so much stuff I want to say right now.
I want to cover all the things the Raiders did terribly today, but I have to go to a wedding in 3 hours. I don't know if I'll make it, if I get to everything.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, 22 of 37, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hey, no turnovers. We'll do the one good thing. Hold on, let me get my happiness. Hey, no turnovers. Look at us. Yay.
Now flip that coin over.
And then the second half happens. And
I have 5 of 6
shit.
officially 5 of 16 for 29 yards. He lost 7 yards on the last pass.
It was like reverse land in the first half. Pass protection was good. Defense was getting 3 and outs. We got a turnover. It was a gift, right? Like Trevor Lawrence kind of a bad pitch, jumped on it. Like all the things we've been doing shitty all season. We did great in the first half. And then like standard operating procedure for this team, an amazing first half by all parties involved. Trash, not always first half, but like one half's good, one half shit. Standard operating procedure. Line stopped blocking well. Carr stopped being accurate. When the ball did get there, guys were dropping it. Defense was just letting Etienne Jr. just run all over them. I'm looking at your keys to victory from the preview show that you did. Pressured Trevor Lawrence.
Nope.
Didn't touch him once. Contained Travis Etienne.
Nope.
Didn't do that. Make shots count. Didn't do that.
We had one. Well, actually, deep. The 2 deep shots we did it early. Yeah, we did it early. Late we didn't.
Davante Adams. You look at this and you're like 10 receptions, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, a long of 38, 17 targets. You saw in the beginning at the start of the show when they do like these are your keys to victory for the color guy. And they wanted 20 rushes for Josh Jacobs and 20 targets for Davante Adams. I thought he was just like fucking around. Like, all right, it makes more sense being 20 for 20. He had like 11 targets in the first half. You're like, oh shit, he's going to get there. He had 17. I don't know if Davante Adams had Ebola last weekend, and that's why he was completely shut out. He's clearly healthy today. But even Davante fucking Adams, again, we still think he's the best wide receiver in football. Even he's not immune to the Raiders just falling apart in a half. Like even him, we're used to Carr falling apart in a half. We're used to our defense falling apart in a half or whole games. We're used to our offensive line.
Did our defense really fall apart in this game though? In the second half?
Trevor Lawrence, 25 of 31. Piss poor Trevor Lawrence. Bottom 5 quarterback. 25 of 31, 235 yards, and a touchdown. Not one sack, not even pressures. Lawrence was able to run. Etienne, 28 carries, 109 yards. Not a great average, only 4 yards per rush. But when they needed yards, he always got it.
He always got
right?
It.
It was 3rd and 2. He would always get 4. Goal line. I didn't know this stat. We knew how bad our red zone defense was last in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They had given up
touchdown
14 for 14 coming in this game and goal to go. And Trevor Lawrence was arguably the worst red zone. He blows Derek Carr away when it comes to being bad in the red zone. The worst red zone quarterback in football. And even he was able to score every time.
Not today.
So yeah, defense, as bad as they've been all season, this second half was as bad as a defense can play, more or less. Didn't get no pressure, none at all. Trevor Lawrence standing there doing what? The rare times that Crosby would kind of get in there, he'd run for 12 yards, get a first down. DBs can't cover guys, bad mismatches. Trash. I mean, just another. It was basically last week, but in one half, right? Instead of the entire game, everyone playing trash. It was back to kind of the old ways where the Raiders look amazing for a half, and then fall apart. And by old ways, I mean like 7 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. This is pretty funny. I'm not going to make it all about one player, but this is pretty funny.
Donate my car. Yeah, there's so many perfect used car for sale. I don't know.
Yeah.
Barely anywhere, or a lot of wear and tear, but it's a classic. I don't know. What would be his blue book profile? That should be something that we start doing. Now that we're not like
salvage auto.
Now that put him at a pick apart. Yeah. Here, we'll give you his brain. We'll give you his clutch from like that 6-year window when he was amazingly clutch. Get it? Clutch, right? That's another car thing.
I get it.
So yeah, Raiders now fall to 2-6, 0-5 on the road. Just cannot, for the life of them, get a W unless they're in Allegiant Stadium. Josh Jacobs bottled up more or less this game too. 17 carries, 67 yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
the run blocking was supposed to be the strength of this line, and it was for like the middle, the last 5 weeks or so. It was above average rush blocking, run blocking line. Not today. Jacobs is pretty much bottled up. Even those 67 yards, those are all Jacobs. Like there was that 15-yarder that was well blocked. I think there's one or two other ones. You're like, okay, that's a good 6 yards that was blocked well. Other than that, it was like
all him after contact.
Yeah, after contact, and that should have been a loss of 2 because it's Josh Jacobs. We got 4, something like that.
I mean, look, there's no other way to put it. We're a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You can't. You can look at it. You can turn it all the way you want. You can look at it from a different perspective all you want. Oh, we close games and this and that, blah blah blah. This is not a team we should have lost to. It's like teams play us to get right, and whatever a team wants to focus on offensively, our defense allows them to do it. Just give them enough time and they'll do it. The first half, I think we did a pretty good job of bottling up Etienne, but he's an explosive player, and we don't have very explosive players on defense. We have like 1 or 2, maybe, and everyone else is just a solid player, maybe a good player, maybe below average, something like that. And you can't win falling apart for a whole half. And there has to be, you have to start looking at different combinations now that you're out of it. You're out of it. We're out of it. It's over for this season.
My neighbor came over with like 2 minutes left in the fourth. He's like, well, are the Raiders like out of it? I'm like, no, they can win 9 in a row. Easy. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. No,
happens all the time.
They're out of it. They're out of it. They can't even win 1 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So look, you can call me whatever you want to call me. That's fine. Oh, you lost hope. You
don't call me late for dinner.
You're not a Raider fan. Whatever. Okay, fine. I'm just decked out in all Raider gear, co-hosting a Raider podcast. We're out of it. Let's just call it what it is. Now what we have to do is we have to figure out where we are player wise, what we can do, what the players can handle, and go out there and try our best. But ultimately, we're looking at the end of the season and next year now. It's not going to happen.
And this is the curveball, right? This is the curveball. Because you're right. Now we're playing for next season. This is the curveball, though, because it's a whole new coaching staff, offensively, defensively. Because it's a notoriously more complicated system than most. This is the decision that the Raiders have to make. Do we teach this season as a learning season where it's, okay, I think we have, we always want to improve our personnel, but I think we basically have the right personnel. We just need to give them as many reps as possible and learn our systems, both offensively, defensively, especially like everything.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, all right, scrap it, start over, and start going from there? Because normally that's the case, right? When it's when you're 2-6 with this kind of talent, like we're so much more talented than Jacksonville. Like this is opposite of last year, where we were beating teams more talented than us.
I mean,
it's
look,
opposite this year.
I think
we have
I think,
talent, and we're losing to teams less talented.
Okay, let's just slow down. I think we have pieces that are talented. Overall, I don't think we're that talented. If you want,
it's not a meshed unit. It's individual elements of talent.
Yeah, we're individuals. We can look at they have this guy great. Yeah, but out of the 22 offensive and defensive players that you put on the field, overall, no, we're not that talented. We have
more than Jacksonville. We are more than Jacksonville.
I don't say that.
Not all of it, but I think we are. Well, that's a conversation for another day. But you see what I'm saying, though, right? Do we commit to mastering the system with the people that we have, or is there a much bigger overhaul and start the new system over again next season? That's a tough question.
Well,
because normally once, sorry to keep cutting you off, but normally once like this bad, you're like, all right, let's start over, clean slate. But we've seen how complicated this system has been. I guess it depends on this. If this team improves as the season goes on, and they're like, all right, they're starting to get it, they're starting to learn it, kind of like the Eagles last season, they kind of found themselves like late and went on a good run, and now it's carried on to this season. If that happens, then I say, obviously, always trying to improve, but generally, these guys are starting to learn this complicated thing. Let's keep them more or less core together. If they don't, then it's all right. Then it's clean slate in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the big difference is money between us and the Eagles. It's a very similar situation that we were in last year as the Eagles were. Mm-hmm. The thing is they were looking to evaluate a quarterback that was still on a rookie contract, a very young quarterback, and they're looking to see what he does best. Our situation's a little bit different. We don't have that kind of financial flexibility, and we need to find out. I'm not saying we should just scrap all the starters and put all the bench warmers in, but you do have to see what these guys can do in game. A lot of times, we've seen it in fighting, in training. Like some guys are just kind of like, eh. And then when they get into their fight, you're like, holy shit, where did that come from, right? Or the other way around. They're amazing world beaters in practice, and they go on the field when the fight's on, and, they can't get it done. So we need to find out who's out there, who do we have, and the players that we do have, what can they handle? And I don't know that necessarily means scrapping everything, but there's certain, positions that we need to get better, play from, and we have to find out which one of those players and which one of those pieces can handle what we're trying to do. Because ultimately, we haven't shown to be consistent, and that's everybody. Even our best players haven't shown to be consistent, and you have to weigh the ceiling or the projected ceiling of these people based off of, and compare that to what they're going to be paid and how you want to move forward.
And it's a tough, not as bad as last season, but it's a tough roster to start over from, because there's only a couple high-priced older dudes that you want to move on from, right? Because the core of this team are guys that I'm not saying we start over, but if you do want to start over, you keep Crosby and Hunter, kicker. Like there's a lot of Hobbs, the guys that you're like, all right, these are guys that we're going to build around. Like we're not move on. Like if you're trying to restart, you keep these young guys, right? There's only a tiny handful of high-paid dudes where you're like, all right, we're starting over, move on. Chandler, which is going to be impossible, $19 million cap hit next season, almost impossible to move on from unless you just take a giant wash. Carr, obviously. Waller, what's his cap situation next season?
15 and change.
So it's like
it's a lot.
I mean, if it's one of those.
Now, as far as Waller goes, we haven't seen him. He got hurt. So it's like it's not like his play on the field has been god awful. He had 2 drops in one game.
He's been real quiet every game. He's been even when But again,
how
hurt is he? Is it something else?
The ball, man.
Yeah.
Well, look, I've said it. I said it before. I'll say it again. Out of those big five that you're either are or prospectively going to pay next season, you can only keep 3 of them. That's Adams, Waller, Renfrow, Carr, and Jacobs. So pick 3. The other then two can walk. Right now, we have 3 under contract for next season, and 2 not under contract for next season, guaranteed.
Well, we can guarantee franchise Jacobs. So we have that right. We have that choice to keep him if we have to. Maybe $9.5 million. If we right, isn't he franchise is 9.5, something like that?
It depends. It's the average of the top top 10.
So I think it's 9.5. I think
like
so. We have the choice on Jacobs. It's just a matter of what we do with it. So, and that's the math that has to be done. And that's why it's like, all right, this is the rest of the season is learning the system, learning who we have. Is it something that can trend up? And all right, they've learned it now, and now we're in sync. Or all right, some of these pieces aren't working. Whether it's again, I'm not, we're not giving up on the coaching staff, but it's their jobs are just as up for as much as the rest of everyone else on this team, right? Because they've proven to be shit, same as everyone else on this team, right?
Everything's been bad.
Everything's up for grabs. This is what sucks though. This is the curve. This is the giant kick in the dick. Mark Davis is making so much money. The Raiders are still the most expensive ticket in football on the secondary market, still at 2-6. And Jacob, Mark Davis, he's making all this money. Does he really give? Does he truly, really, really give a shit? Is he gonna make? Is he having sleepless nights after losses like this?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
King 85, thanks for the super chat, dude. He says,
Appreciate
rumor has
King.
it Green Bay offered a 2 and a late rounder for Waller. Should have traded him, in my opinion. The coaching staff has identified Waller as a guy they want to build around. And when you build a team, you have to have cornerstones and building blocks. And there are not a lot of Darren Wallers out there. So, I mean, are there a lot of Hunter Renfrows out there? Sure, there's a lot of slot receivers out there that can do what Hunter Renfrow does. They may not be able to do everything that Hunter Renfrow does, but that's why you have Davante Adams. He can do a lot of that stuff too. But, I mean, I hear you. It would have been interesting, but ultimately, I don't have a problem with them sticking with Waller because we really haven't seen him. We really haven't seen him this year. I was talking to a family member of mine yesterday, and we were having this discussion. And he's like, "You can win. You can win and be, consistently in the second round of the playoffs. Conference championship game. You can be that with a game manager type quarterback, right? You can do it, but you have to have a pretty special, not just a good team. You have to have a pretty special team around that quarterback." So I pose this question: what's easier to do, get 1 right or get 52 right? He said, 52. And I'm like, wait a second. You're telling me you can't find a game manager quarterback somewhere? And this is not to say we move on from Carr. I'm saying he could be that game manager quarterback. But when you start building, that's one thing you have to focus on is how are you going to build? Are you going to build around what you have and just kind of improve all around you? Or do you free up resources by, like I said, maybe 3 out of the 5? It's a pretty rough question. It's tough. One of the things that I think would help us out is if we see players that don't normally play and see how they do in the system. Because something tells me that it goes deeper than just bad coaching. It goes deeper than just bad execution. Because we have these halves where we're clicking 20 points in the first half and then to do nothing in the second half. There's something else there.
Yeah. And honestly, again, I think those type of breakdowns that's coaching's a big chunk of that, right? Just that level of every layer on both sides of the ball falling apart simultaneously, right? Carr fell apart, but the defense fell apart. Everything, the pass rush fell apart. Receivers started dropping. Pro Bowl receivers started dropping balls. It was what? I've never seen this before, ever.
It's
every single element,
thing, man.
every single element of this team falls apart at halves. And sometimes and if it was just like, if we were always winning in the first half and falling apart in the second, that's a little bit more info to kind of figure it out. But it's been inverted a few times. Tennessee, we started completely trash and almost came back and played well in the second half. Like it's not even like if it was always first half, like, okay, coaches aren't making the right adjustments and our opposing coaches are figuring us out and beating us in the second half. Like you can start to kind of like figure it out, but that's not what happens every time. Like it's flopping. Like that's what's most frustrating. It can't point to one thing for why this team keeps just falling apart randomly per half per game. Or both halves if it's in New Orleans.
Bentley the Gent, thanks a lot, man, for the super chat. Really appreciate you, dude. Start scouting quarterback Levi's. What do you think about Will Levis? I think he's a really talented kid. I think he has a lot of tools, and he has had a couple of rough games against better competition, but the kid's, really talented. He's one of the higher rated quarterbacks right now in college football. You can't really judge a quarterback by his college tape because a lot of times he's not playing with the best players, and he's playing against,
he's Kentucky, so it's
it's the SEC, but it's not like he's got a bunch of 4- and 5-star recruits around him. So I think he's very talented. I don't want to take it. I don't want to take it into that direction. And it's for me. If we do want to move on from our quarterback, it's the play is part of it, but the bigger part of it is the money. We need too much help on other parts to have a quarterback that's inconsistent and can show you big good flashes, but then also can disappear at times. And it's just not worth the cap space when we have so many other parts of this team that need to be brought up to speed. I mean, look at what the Niners did when they traded for Garoppolo. They built the team and then they said, okay, well, let's go get a quarterback. Let's go get somebody that is a steady Eddie type. Now, the flip of that is when you need him to make the throw in the Super Bowl, he overthrows it, right? Like that's the flip side. Another one is like a Joe Flacco type where they had, but that defense had fucking 4 Hall of Famers on that defense, what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, are you going to build?
Is Flacco the worst Super Bowl winning quarterback?
I think Foles, probably.
Foles played amazing in the playoffs. That's
but he's not that good, though. He's like Eli Manning.
Like he's a whatever quarterback, but when like the lights are brightest, he played great.
That's why I'm thinking. Look,
thanks, Bentley.
Thanks, Bentley. Appreciate you, man. Let's. Because look, okay, we're not going to win this year. We're not going to go to the playoffs this year. Whatever. If we end up going to the playoffs, I'll fucking do the show naked. Okay. If I don't know who that's going to be benefiting but you have to take a look at
if we go to the playoffs, I'll do this show pants off, helicoptering my dick for an hour and a half. Yeah, let me one up.
You can't helicopter that light switch dick of yours. Stop.
Oh, dude, you'll hear slapping back and forth so bad, I'll shave everything.
That's going to be your balls. That's not going to be your dick. All balls, no cock. So we have to take a look at what you want to do with this money. And if you have so many holes as you've proved, I don't know. I don't know that you give.
There's decisions to be made as things go on, right? So like if like I said, if this team just is awful, right? We win 1 or 2 more games, we're picking in the top 5. Then there's decisions to be made.
If we're picking in the top 5, we got to get one of these quarterbacks. We got to.
So this is the thing. That would be amazing. We'll see how these quarterbacks pan out, right? But also when you're in that top 5, you get like. Let's do it. Let's push
playoff push. Like, we're gonna be watching the playoffs in the bar. I think maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna be
let's
there.
Let's see some helicoptering dicks. But like
when you're weird day today. It was a weird day today. The fucking Jets beat the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck? They were 10.5-point underdogs.
I played against Joe Mixon in one of my fantasy leagues.
God, he went
58 fantasy points in that league.
Oh God, it's terrible.
That's how much people love hearing about our fantasy problems. But But like this is the thing too, right? If you start picking in like real high, right? It could be easily one of those like Dolphins Niners situations where someone's like, "Hey, I want to trade up. Let me give you 3 1s," right? Like, and then there's a decision to be made because the quarterback is a maybe right now, right? Like you said, the money's tough. He's flashes. You know, we can always improve on him, but at what cost? But there's so many other holes on this team too, right? Like imagine we can turn 3 1s into a linebacker, a safety, a right tackle, right? Like, I'm not saying that's what we do. We don't take a quarterback that we like, but it's like those are big decisions to be made because there are tons, there are entire units on this squad that need depth, youth, and talent, and those are all something to be used.
Derek, I recommend you start drinking heavily, and you want to listen to me because I'm pre-med. What movie is that from?
How about this? I got another one. Let us know in the comments section. Another one. Picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue.
Yep. That's a good one.
So I do a dry January every year just because like you go from Thanksgiving. Because just so I'm not dead, just to keep me out of a coffin. I do a dry January because, you know, with Thanksgiving and Christmas, family, drinking, eating a ton, it's like, all right, I need like a month of detox. And I've been doing it the last 3 years. I'm so glad I do because I remember every playoff game now. Like January rolls around. Normally I'm just like partying because it's playoffs. I'm not watching intently because the Raiders are never in it. But now I remember all playoff games now. It's amazing. So there's times to stop drinking. You know, the good part is I'm already dead inside about this team. So it's like I don't need to drink to hurt the pain. Like I'm already numb to it, you know? Like I'm already on my 3rd overdose.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I am down to keep our quarterback if he restructures his contract, which he can totally do with no penalty to us because nothing's guaranteed. Mm-hmm. But at that number,
and he's already proven like he's like the one quarterback in football that'll try to do a team friendly deal, right?
If he takes like the 19 he's making this year, next year, I'm down. That'll work, but you can't give him 36, bro. We
can get that, and then we can get maybe a couple more first rounders or some seconds if we're a top 5 pick. And that's the thing is like this is I'm still invested in this season for all these reasons, right? It's not like the team. There's no pieces here. Completely scrap everything.
Hey RJ, are you tired of being alone?
Will help.
That's how you know you fucking made it. Because when you start getting freaking trolled by random fucking porn sites and spam shit.
I'm gonna click on these one of these days and just like follow this rabbit hole. After a Raiders loss, we'll do this live on on air one time. We'll take one of these like sex bots and just like find out what it is. That's just because what else can we do? But again, genuinely, I'm still engaged in this season for all those reasons we brought up. Will these units start clicking with these new systems? Yes or no? Where's our draft pick going to be? Drastically affects what we do. Like these are all because again, if how this team is structured, rebuild is kind of it's different. It's doable, but it's a weird.
You have to commit. You have to commit. The issue is committing to this roster has shown you because we've committed to this roster and we've doubled down and tripled down, and it's just the window closes when you commit to a roster and then you don't hit in the draft.
And it sucks because we committed to the roster that took us to the playoffs, but not the coaching staff that took us. So it's like
I'm talking even before that, when we got rid of our line and then we missed on a bunch of picks. Like, I mean, it's
you missed on picks.
I mean, it doesn't happen often, but so we're at this point now. We're okay. Let's pick a direction. And I mean, nobody likes to know that they're not going to be great. But at least you know that there's a direction, and to keep running out the same squad over and over again, that's one of the reasons why, and I'm not going to belabor the point, that's one of the reasons why I kind of want to move on for our quarterback now, because there just seems to be a little bit of a stink on him now, where he's been known to do all these wonderful things, and recently it hasn't been that. And there's too many. That's too many resources for one player that hasn't shown to be able to be consistent. And you just pick a direction and move. Pick a direction, move forward. You know what? These high-priced guys got to go. Davante Adams, you're on the back part of your career. You're 31 years old. You're going to get paid a bunch of money, guaranteed for 2 more years after this one. Waller's got another 2 years after this one. Same thing with Renfrow. So that 3-year window, we can figure out what we can do to build up the rest of this team and maybe get a couple of guys to hit to come replace you. But we got to figure something else out, pick a direction and move in it. But the thing is you keep trotting out the same pieces and try to build stuff around them. It just hasn't worked.
The Carr thing gets even extra complicated, knowing that he's always struggled into the first year of a new system, right? So it's like we really should have saw this coming, right? Like he always struggles first year new system.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse, man. You have all these different quarterbacks, like, dude, that are doing well the first year in the system, man. Like Mariota, you got Cousins, you got
quarterbacks.
Tua.
Those are also quarterbacks doing well in systems adjusted for the quarterback. This is McDaniels.
You're telling me he's not adjusting this stuff? Look what happened in the preseason. What did they talk about? What did they say? He said that he's asking us what he wants. He's changing different things. It's coming into the game plan. It's great. That's all great and well. And then you go on the field and where is it?
They're saying the right things, right? Like McDaniels.
So now everyone's lying to protect him, like before he even happened.
No, I'm saying McDaniels is taking the notes of when he failed in Denver and asking guys. It's like when you're hitting on a chick at a bar and you're like, hey, what's your sign? Oh, really? Tell me your story. What were you like as a kid? You don't give a fuck, but you're trying to make them feel good. I don't know if that's what McDaniels is doing or if he's genuine. Or if he's genuinely saying, hey, Carr, hey, Davante, I want to know how to make my system fit you. Or if he's just trying to get in their pants. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, right? But I know that if I'm trying to make a player feel good, multi-million-dollar athletes, been to Pro Bowls, egos, hey, what do you think we should do, Davante? How could I change my play calling to make your route running even better? I'd say shit like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's really hollow because these guys know what's up. These aren't rookies. These are guys who've been in the league, and they know, hey, if that's true.
This is the key, lines, bro. Steve Cock, the fighter. RJ has weak bar slut lines. You got to go to the right bar. That shit lands if you're at the right bar.
Something tells me that Steve's been to some pretty soft bars.
Bentley the Jet, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it. So do you trust Zeke if we draft low? We need to draft low. In the middle won't be good. This is what's always funny is when the draft comes around, like, oh yeah, Raiders drafting. That's on the past. Whole new GM, whole new scouting staff. All the history is gone, right? Mark Davis doesn't really tinker as far as we know. Mark Davis doesn't come down and tinker in the draft room, as far as we know, right? So all history is wiped clean. Whole new staff, it's all gone, right? Ziegler has proven to be pretty bad with contracts so far, as we've seen, right? Like the Waller extension, Chandler Jones pickup, like it's free agency and contract stuff's been pretty. You do 3 things as a GM: draft, contracts, free agency. That's basically what you do, right? And they're all kind of related. Drafting was pretty good. I feel like not having a first and second rounder, we drafted all right, more or less, right? So if the move is to say like, all right, let's just get a bunch of draft picks and hope. This is the dirty little secret about drafting. There is no GM in the history of the NFL that has always crushed their draft picks. Never. It's true. Literally never happened. There's been GMs that are obviously better than others, right? Like they'll have, there'll be GMs that'll go like back-to-back great drafts and then a bad one. But the GMs that get credit for being like, the Patriots always got a lot of credit for being great drafters because they drafted guys that they kept and were good. They missed a ton. The difference was they were great at accumulating draft picks. The Patriots were always good at doing what we always talk about, treating draft picks and players as assets, not as human beings. Right? Bill Belichick is the rare coach GM who understands that. Like, these are assets. They have X amount of value. What I think they're worth is only half the equation. It's what everyone else thinks they're worth that also adds to the equation. And so getting like that's the difference here is getting more draft picks because if you fall in love with your own guys, you're going to be Mike Mayock and John Gruden.
Yeah. Well, look, the thing is, you don't know you don't know what's going to happen a year from now. Let's say, for example, okay, we're in a position to take a quarterback high. We're in a position because we had a rough season this year. Well, you know what? We could trade our pick to get a bunch of other players around us and see. And then next year, we're like drafting in the mid-teens, and we're not going to be. And there's, when an important position is there and you've identified that maybe we should move on, you got to go get it. You have to get that person because you don't know when you're going to have a chance to get them again. And I get what you're saying.
And this isn't Carr love at all, but I hate that idea of like, oh, this is the guy, because it usually
you have to identify your guy. I mean, look, okay, who's starting in the NFL right now? Okay, you got Carr, the second rounder. You got Russell Wilson's a third rounder. You got a first rounder in Mahomes and a first rounder in Herbert. Let's go to the Central, okay, or the North. First rounder in Burrow, first rounder in Lamar. You got a first round. Oh,
Lamar's a weird one, right? Because he was 32, but
no, he was a first rounder. But Lamar, Watson's going to start. He's the starter there. He's a first rounder, and Pittsburgh got that first rounder. Oh, no, yeah, he was a first rounder in Pickett. Okay, there's a theme coming here. Okay, in the South, first rounder with the Jags. I guess you can call Ryan a first rounder. They moved on from him, but I don't know where Ellinger was drafted. You have who else is in the fucking South? Screw it, they don't matter. The East, you got a first rounder with Buffalo. You got a first rounder with the Jets. You got a first rounder with Miami. You got a first rounder with you see what I'm saying? Like
100%. But this is the other flip side of it too. Now list all the first round quarterbacks that were drafted that completely flopped.
Okay, I know, I understand, RJ, but the thing is if you're in the position to take a guy that can be your starting quarterback, you have to take it. Because if you don't and you end up in, and I think the real purgatory, RJ, is being when that 7 to 9, 6 to 9 wins. That's purgatory because you're not quite, because where we've been for a long time, you're not quite good enough to do a massive rebuild. So you just keep kind of slapping shit on that old car. You keep, I'll just do this and I'll just slap this on. I don't want to get a whole new car. Let me just slap this. Let me just slap that on and see it. And it's like you never get what you could have gotten if you would have done it sooner. When you have that opportunity, you have to get it. It's the most important position on your team, and you just have to do it. You have to if you're there. And it's like your confidence for success has to outweigh your fear of failure. And I think that's where you are. I don't want to miss on a first-round pick. It's like that Jamarcus Russell hangover. I don't want to miss on a first-round pick. I'll just play it safe and keep what I have because it's okay. Like, no, okay is not okay. You have to have better play. You have to have more consistent play. And if you have somebody who's a little bit more dynamic, which the top quarterbacks coming out in this draft are a little bit more dynamic, yeah, you go for it.
Again, like I'll say it 100 times. I think we're both in agreement. It's every single player on this team is up for an improvement. You try to improve every single element as long as you have someone that you can improve on, right? With the exception of Davante Adams, Max Crosby, and Daniel Carlson. We are not moving on. Nothing you can do can say move on from those three. They're that good.
I get it, man. It's tough. It's tough. It's not fun.
And that's the thing is, none of this addresses the real problem. And it's that intangible, what the fuck? Why does this whole team fall apart randomly for a half every game? That's the giant cloud that's shitting all over this team.
It's been happening for 9 years, sir. That's the one thing that's in common.
Terrible defense the last 9 years?
Yeah, there's that. What you got, and the thing is it's not going to get better giving 30% of your cap or whatever it is to one person. You can't. It just can't. And if we can get him for cheaper, cool. I'm down. We can't keep him for this money. We just can't. We have too many other holes we have to hit. And I keep coming back to that because it's the most glaring area of a player that is underperforming and the money that we're going to be able to give. 3 years, man. If we keep him on, it's 3 more years, dude.
And that's something that needs to be figured out. But I keep bringing it back to last season. We had as much controversy and shit thrown at us as I think any football team in any season in the NFL.
But that
right?
we're talking about now, the field stuff now.
And what
man.
I'm saying is a big chunk of that core players is still there that overcame all of that. And now we're opposite. We were the less talented team beating more talented teams, overcoming adversity. Now we're exactly opposite. Is it just because it's a whole new? Maybe all that momentum just disappears in an offseason.
Maybe we just came back down to earth. But what I tell you after last year when we lost to the Bengals, this team is dead. This team is over. This team will never be there again. This mix of players and circumstances and all that stuff, that team is gone now. There's a new team next year, and people have to step up and they have to play their roles and they have to overplay their expectations for us to be better. And it's just not happening. Is this who we are? Is this who we were last year? I mean, we were 6-7 before we, went on that highly improbable run that I can't even explain to you how we did because the stats didn't really support that. We turning over the ball multiple times a game and not getting turnovers ourselves, and we're basically playing off the backs of Jacobs and Carlson. And I don't know, man. There's no easy answer to what's going on and what we do, but there's some pretty big red flags. It's pretty big. I mean, there's not easy answers. It's like if the answer is not easy to do, it's not easy to say, okay, yes, we're going to do this, but they're not hard. They're not hard to make. They're not hard to identify. Excuse me. They're easy to identify. They're just hard to do. Because I don't think it's all Derek Carr's fault. I don't think it's all his fault. But the thing is, if he needs to show you more than what he's shown you, especially consistency-wise, for us to even think twice about giving him that amount of money. We just can't do it, man. He's just not consistent enough to do it.
What's the key in your mind to getting this defense right?
We don't have the right personnel for this defense, man. I told you in the beginning, our linebackers can't cover, and now none of the only case safety that can cover is Harmon.
But this is the problem. Our defense is worse than last year. It should on paper be better, personnel wise. Young guys 1 year better on paper, right? That's generally painting with broad strokes.
Fits. You have to look at what fits, happens, though, man.
That's Patrick Graham's job.
If you're
that's
linebackers,
his job. That's why we got him. You can take weird parts and make something of it. Like that. I'm way more concerned with Patrick Graham than I am Josh McDaniels, scheme wise. Way more concerned. This defense got what do we say, right? The worst red zone defense last year in the league, 32 out of 32, and it got even worse this year.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Good thing your life's not on the line.
I know. I'm still alive, Brandon, so go fuck yourself. How about that? So it's the issue that I'm having here is there is a general scheme that Patrick Graham likes to run because he can do a lot of stuff within that scheme. It's just the players that he's been given that he's been kind of grandfathered in. They can't really do. They don't have those skills. Merrick has shown that he is not good in coverage. We knew Abram wasn't good. We knew Perriman wasn't good. We knew, Diablo's been a little bit better, but
Gus Bradley got good stuff out of them. The holes were there, but they would still perform good things.
They were still bad.
The defense is worse this year than last year.
So here's the deal.
That's a really big deal, Soto. When you talked about it too. When Patrick Graham came over, what do we like about him the most? He can take shitty parts and make something good. He did it in New York. That's his specialty. He's so flexible. He's not a Gus Bradley. I have to have my guys. He's not Paul Gunther. So complicated and pointless. He's flexible. It's because we don't have the personnel. So Paul Gunther, Jesus Christ, Patrick Graham, he can make it better. He can get the most out of who we have, and he's done opposite. We haven't even seen the strengths that we see out of Abram and Perriman and these guys. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. We haven't. That's who I'm really concerned about. Is Patrick Graham.
I mean, look, we had the ball. Oh shit! No, the numbers said what I was going to say. We had the ball twice in the fourth quarter with a chance to win, and our offense couldn't do it. As much as you want to talk about the defense,
No sacks.
but also, I mean, again, sacks don't get you points. When you have the ball twice and you could win or at least tie the game, and you do absolutely zero with it, that's a problem, man. And look, when you have when you run a basic defense, it's easier for opposing offensive coordinators to make plays against you. I think that was the issue with Gus Bradley, is his defense was a little bit too basic. That's why we gave up a lot of big plays, and that's why we were that poor on defense. The issue with Patrick Graham is not the scheme, it's the players that he has. I just don't think
it's mostly the same players as last season.
They're not good.
We can compare apples to apples.
But
Gus Bradley got more out of these guys last season than this season.
How did they get more? They were still bad.
Not as bad as this season. Yes, they were bad. It was a bad defense last season and a worse defense this season.
Bad is bad, RJ. If it's 1 or 2 points a game, bad is bad. They're not anywhere near the top.
But worse is worse. Come on, come on, dude.
Look,
you can't defend Patrick Graham that hard. We got worse, but it's still bad. It doesn't matter.
Look,
it matters.
I would rather run a more sophisticated scheme to identify players that you cannot move forward with than dummy it down and think you have something that you don't.
And he's doing neither. He's not getting results. He's
identifying players that we can't move up.
None of them. This defense is playing well, other than Max.
People were yelling and screaming to sign up Denzel Perryman. I don't think we'd give him jack shit.
I'm concerned it won't matter if Patrick Graham just can't figure it out. That's my biggest concern. Come on, you got to admit,
no, they're playing poorly. I'm not defending Patrick Graham. What I'm saying is you're looking at it from one perspective, but there's a whole other perspective that you're not looking at. Gus Bradley running a system with the lack of talent that we had, he did. I wouldn't say he even did a good job because we were still a bad defense and we still gave up big plays, even though we weren't supposed to. We still did. So
we were one of the best teams in limiting big plays. That was one thing this defense did really, really well. It was we're second or third in 20 plus yard plays, or the different interpretations for explosive plays they have. We were always good there because that was the only thing Gus Bradley cared about. And so that was okay. Here's our one strength on a terrible defense. With Patrick Graham, nothing's good. And players are playing worse.
2 times in the fourth quarter to either win or tie the game, and we did nothing. We're in all these games. So as bad as our defense is, even when our defense didn't do our offense didn't do our defense any favors like they did in the second half again, we were still able to kind of keep it close and get some stops and give ourselves the opportunity to win these games. And we're just not getting it done. And I'm not giving Patrick Graham an out, because we're giving up, more than 24, 25 points every single game, something like that.
Of the 8 teams we've played, 3 of the 8 teams we played had their season high in points against us. Jacksonville, this was their second most. They somehow put up 38 against the Chargers. And
5 of our losses are 1 possession games.
So just imagine if opposing offenses weren't having career games against us. That's again.
Let's focus
on defense for 1 second. We talk offense 80% of the time.
When you put so much of your salary cap and so much of your money on the offensive end,
100%.
Then why are we even talking about this?
Because it still needs to be addressed. We spend 80% of our time talking about the offense, which is how it should be.
Because that's where our money is.
So let's spend 20% of our time addressing the worst unit on our team. The defense, I'm not saying let's put all the blame on them. I'm asking, aren't you concerned that it's got worse?
I'm not concerned because our players aren't good. We need to get better players to play better. I'm not good. I know what we have. Listen, if I have a girlfriend and I know she's real flirty when she gets drunk, guess what? When we go to a bar, I'm not leaving her side. I know who she is. I know who my defense is. I know I have to lean on my offense. And my defense gave my offense 2 opportunities to win or tie the game in the fourth quarter, and we went.
Denzel Perryman was a Pro Bowler last year and like top 3 in tackles.
He's not good.
He trashed it. He was good last year. Like that.
Bro,
that's my point. Not everyone got worse. Everyone got worse this season. That's really concerning to me on the defense. Everyone's worse.
Again, when you run a basic defense, it's easier for opposing. If you want to break that 20, RJ, you're not going to play that type of defense. You have to play a more sophisticated defense. You have to be able to think better. Your body has to be able to respond. You have to be that talented to do it. If you don't have those right players, if you don't have that talented a unit, it's just not going to work. It wasn't
then you as a defensive coordinator adjust your scheme to get the most you can out of them. And Gus Bradley's like, all right, this is a shit defense.
So now we're in the same
super
thing.
Simple.
It's like, are we going to keep coaching and teaching these guys and try to get them to get our system? Or are we going to just scrap all that and dummy it down?
If you're a really good coach, you try to do your best to do both, right? Like, all right, start real simple. We'll build next, 1 week at a time, build. Hopefully a couple, by the end of the season, these guys will get it. Hopefully into, season 2 and 3, they've mastered it, right? Like if you're a really good defensive coordinator, you get the most that you can out of them while teaching, right? It's hard. That's why these guys get paid millions of dollars. It's not easy. But I don't see Patrick Graham doing any of that. He's not effective. They're not getting better. Everyone's playing worse than last season. Like, okay, like you push your chips in one direction. All right, we're going all in for this season, dummy it down. Okay. All right, we're just working to get smarter and better for next season. Okay, let's get
complicated. How do you get smarter and better when you don't coach them, when you don't teach them what you want them to run? How do you get smarter and better? You don't.
None of the things I mentioned are happening. There's no direction this defense is going. It's not improving, and it's not playing well. So what's Patrick Graham doing?
I'm not saying he's doing a good job. I don't think he's doing as bad a job as you're saying, because I don't know that our team is that good defensively, just talent-wise.
It's not.
Our secondary is probably one of the worst in the league, and I think we kind of knew it too, especially with Hobbs being out. I don't think we knew that Merrick was as bad as he was coverage-wise, but yeah, he's pretty bad. That's pretty disappointing to me.
I'm just not going to get over it that this defense is.
I'm not telling you that they're good or they're better or whatever. They're bad. But when you have that much money on your offense, and your offense puts up 20 points, no points in the second half, that's kind of on your offense, man. That's what you're built around.
Offense is supposed to, we needed an average to maybe even slightly below average defense on paper, right? With how much money we spent on our offense to have success this season. And obviously the offense didn't carry their end, and that's why we were on the offense 80% of the time. But this defense, like, how do you go from the worst red zone defense in football last season and still get worse? It's like, that's so concerning to me. And again, like what we said all the time, like there's a cultural problem with this defense. It's been bad for 20 years, right? Like I'm not expecting Patrick Graham to turn it around and make it good, right? Like, none of us had that expectation. But incrementally better, at least have a direction. Maybe one unit thrives a little bit, like some glimmer, some spark of some kind. It's nothing.
I am not going to be mad if Patrick Graham is saying, I don't give a shit. You guys are going to learn my system because I know it works. It's hard. And if you can't think, if you can't apply and execute what I want you to do, then I know I need to get new players. Because that's when you see those big jumps from one year to the next defensively. You don't dummy it down for them. You just throw them in there and you make it happen. And if they can't, you find out who's not going to be able to execute your system, and then you move on. And that's when you see those jumps throughout the year.
That's what you do now, right? Like now that the playoffs are out of that's what you do now is throw them in the fire, try to figure it out, right? But at the start of the season, this was a team built to win now, right? That this was a team built to win this season and do well this season. It was a 10-win playoff team last season, added some expensive free agents, trade away draft picks to get Davante. This was all right, let's fucking win this season. And Patrick Graham, as a defensive coordinator, as a guy that we all thought would be, pretty smart, went to Harvard, like smart fucking guy. It's like, all right, these are your pieces. Make it work. We're not asking you to be a top 5 defense. Just give us the best you can. And it got worse. It's like,
yeah, well, we've had the ball every game that we've lost, except for one. We've had the ball with the chance to win, and we haven't done it.
Offense has dropped the ball. Defense is even worse than way
Yeah,
worse. I know they're not getting a lot of money, but they're getting.
We know. But
they're
we
worse.
know.
They're worse than the salary that they're getting too.
And so is our offense.
Yeah,
that's not good. Our special teams is pretty spot on, right?
Yeah,
our punter and kicker, those guys are earning their money.
Carlson's he's what, 3? He's 3 field goals away from the all-time record for
consecutive field goals? 41 in a row. Yeah, 41 in a row now.
And it's 40. Is it 44?
It's 44. Yeah,
44 is the record, right? So 3 away from tying. And there's some fucking bangers in there too. Like there's consistently
56, 58. There were a couple against the Chargers last year were some deep ones. Mm-hmm. Oh, nice and deep.
Nice and deep. Balls deep.
All right, man, let's get the fuck out of here, dude. I'm tired of talking about this shit.
All right. We didn't really break down this game at all.
Why, dude? It doesn't matter.
Well, I think people want to come on and hear the analysis a little bit. Or maybe they just want to vent.
Yeah, vent all you want.
Venting's good too.
Let's see. See the cockfighter one. He always has some good comments. If you have a team that's built to win now and they don't, then it's time to rebuild. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue that. Johnny Gons. Let's go through a couple of these
special
guys.
Teams coverage has.
Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Special teams coverage has gotten worse compared to last season, right? It's really just our kicking. Like it's literally just the leg of Cole and Carlson. What if Stidham wears a card jersey? You get starting him. I just want to see the supposedly awesome scheme run by someone who actually knows it. Are you at the point where you want to see Stidham start yet, Soto? I'm going to get you to say start Stidham at some point.
I want to see him play. I want to see what he can do. When I said we need to see what we have, and if we can bring, let's say we bring a guy off the bench.
Is Stidham the answer? Does he start first next season?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe if we get a rookie, but here's the reason. Let's say you put Masterson in there and Butler, right? The 2 rookie linebackers, and they do a pretty damn good job. They break up a couple passes here and there. Then hey, you know what? It's not my scheme. It's the players running it because these 2 guys off the bench come in there and they're doing okay. If you put Stidham in there and he's a steady Eddie and he moves the ball and he does maybe not as spectacular as Carr's highs, but doesn't have Carr's lows, then you know where to move on from. It's not all about that specific person, but the person that he replaced, what you have there too. Because it's very easy to be like, well, Derek Carr is really good. He's shown that he's been really good. So he just has to make it click. He just has to make it work. Then you put someone in there who's not as talented, because Stidham is not as talented as Derek Carr. But you put him in there and he's able to work the scheme better. You're like, well, maybe we should move on from him and find somebody else. Who knows? I don't know. But I do want to see him play.
The Woods of Ingle. Why doesn't RJ understand the concept of players fitting schemes? Perrin fit Bradley's scheme, but on this one, for example. Like I've said 100 times, this was the point of Patrick Graham, is he has a flexible scheme that can work with who he's got. That was the big pitch. That's what made him special. That's what we got excited about him. He's like, yeah, we don't have a good defense with good players. We've got 2.5 good players on our defense. But Patrick Graham's the guy that knows how to build around that. He built a semi-decent defense in New York that was trash everywhere, minus like corner and a couple defensive people on the front. And he made a decent defense, a defense that shed no business being decent.
Oh, we were decent last year?
Huh?
We were decent last year? Or the Giants?
Giants, when he was at the Giants.
I'm about to say, goddamn. Now you're really reaching, dude.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Are you going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly?
I don't know. I'll figure it
Monday,
out.
or depends how drunk you get.
I don't want to fucking do it. All
right. Well, I get to go to a wedding right now, Sunday wedding. Try to turn this day around as best as possible. We'll see if how hammered I get at the bar, trying to like break down linebacker play with a random person who doesn't want to hear it or talk to me. But if you see that, if you happen to be at the exact same wedding I am, and you see me like breaking down Darren Waller's catching habits to someone who's not interested, save that person, please, because I can see that happening. Until then, knock on wood if you're with me.